In this video, we're going to introduce the grammar of Greek nouns, specifically with respect to what is called case. One of the great things about learning a foreign or biblical language is also that you get some words to describe the grammar that you know in your head, but that you may have not thought about for many, many, many years. So in this video, we're also going to talk about some of the basics of grammar, and particularly English grammar, in order to make sure that we have those concepts sort of solidified as we move into the Greek grammar of the different cases. I'm not sure if you've heard this before, but Greek is a highly inflected language. That's true with respect to verbs. Verbs change for their tense, voice, and mood, and also for their person and number. But that's also going to be true when it comes to nouns, that a Greek noun will change its form. It will look differently based on its function in a sentence. So a word, depending on what it's doing in the sentence, its grammatical function, it's going to look different in Greek on the basis of that function. In English, we do this a little bit differently. We normally sort of associate a word's function in a sentence based on where it shows up in the sentence. That is to say, the word order of the sentence. So in English, word order is a little bit more inflexible, and that's because English is not a highly inflected language the way that Greek is. So in the English sentence, apostles see people, we know that the ones doing the seeing are the apostles because they become before the verb see. We like to put the subject of the sentence before the verb, and we like to put the object, what is seen, what receives the action of the verb, after it. If we flip those around and we put people see apostles, same exact words but in different order, the sentence means different things. In Greek, it's different. In Greek, word order is flexible. You could have the same words in the same order and mean different things because the form of the word would change just slightly to indicate what the subject of the sentence is. So for example, to put these two English sentences into Greek, apostoloi blepusen anthropous means apostles see people, with the apostles being the ones seeing the people, the anthropos. If you have the same words here, apostolus, notice we have a different ending here. We'll talk about those endings in a little bit. Apostolus blepusen anthropoi, this one means people see apostles, but you could have either one of these as sentences meaning two different things because the meaning of or the function of each word is dependent not necessarily or not solely on word order, but largely upon the endings of those particular words, indicating what they are doing in the sentence. And what a word is doing in a sentence is called its grammatical function or its grammatical use. So with respect to English grammar, or really grammar most basically, the subject is the one who is most directly related to the action of the verb. When it comes to active verbs, they are doing the they are doing the action of the verb, whereas when it comes to a passive verb, the action is being done to them. So the subject is the most closely related entity with respect to the verb. And in English, we like our subject to precede the verb, as I said earlier. Dr. Elder teaches Greek. We know that I am the one teaching Greek because my name precedes the verb. The direct object in a sentence is the thing that receives the action of the verb most directly. So in the example of Dr. Elder teaches Greek, Greek follows the verb teaches because in English we like the order to be subject, verb, object, with the object following upon the verb. And the indirect object is sort of the direct object, but one step removed, or it is one step removed from the direct object. It receives the action of the verb in a more indirect way than does the direct object. So in English, the indirect object is going to follow upon the direct object. So we have subject, verb, direct object, indirect object in most cases, or we also indicate the indirect object with something like a prepositional phrase. So Dr. Elder teaches Greek. Dr. Elder is the subject, the main one doing the action of the verb. Teaches is the verb. Greek is the direct object. It is the thing most directly affected by what Dr. Elder is doing, teaching, to the students. The students are sort of indirectly affected by the action that is happening to the direct object, which is Greek in this sentence. So before we jump into Greek, I want to make sure that we're sort of on the same page with respect to grammatical basics here and do a couple examples in English where you are going to identify the subject, verb, direct object, and indirect object. So I'll put them up here and you go ahead and pause, identify which is which, and when you unpause, I will give you the correct answers here and I'll mark the sentence as I would a Greek sentence and as you'll see me mark Greek sentences as you continue on in your Greek journey. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, despite the fact that I say subject first in the instructions, is actually to find the verb. It's very, very helpful in Greek to find your verb first. So in English, our verb here is teaches. I am going to underline an indicative verb with a single underline in my marking system. So the verb here is teaches. The action of the sentence is teaches. The one doing the action, or the one most closely related to the action, the subject of the verb, is Dr. Elder. I put a square box around the subject of the verb in my marking system. So the subject is Dr. Elder. He's doing the action of teaches. So this is simple action viewed as a whole. If we wanted to do continuous action, it would be is teaching, ongoing action. And what he teaches, the direct object, is Greek. So I'm going to circle that in my marking system. The direct object is circled. And then to the students, the indirect objects, I do sort of squiggly little brackets for the indirect object and also for prepositional phrases in Greek. So Dr. Elder, subject, teaches, verb, Greek, direct object, students, indirect object. Let's go ahead and try another one. The students learn Greek. Go ahead and pause here and identify the different grammatical parts of the sentence. All right, so our verb, the first thing that I suggest we find is learn. Again, a present tense verb here. And the ones doing the action of that learning, the subject of the verb, is the students. And the thing that they are learning, the direct object, is Greek. So notice here, there is no indirect object. Sentences do not necessarily have to have an indirect object. And in fact, they do not necessarily have to have a direct object. And they don't have to have an explicit subject because Greek is a highly inflected language. So the subject can actually be embedded in the verb itself. So you can have a single word Greek sentence that has the subject within the verb itself. So he teaches could be a one-word sentence in Greek. So you have to have a subject and a verb to have a sentence, but the subject can be embedded in the verb when it comes to Greek. It doesn't have to stand alone as it does in English. Okay, let's do one more, probably the best one here, and what you will in fact do in the future. The students kick the ass of the Greek exam. Go ahead and pause and find the different elements of this sentence. All right, so starting with our verb, the action is kick. The ones doing that, the subject of the sentence, the students, what they are kicking, what is most directly affected, is the ass. And then of the Greek exam is not actually the indirect object. This is a bit of a trick question here, and I'm setting us up for what we are going to do next. Of the Greek exam is showing possession. That is, to whom does the ass belong? The Greek exam. And so we'll talk about what that'll look like in the Greek cases in just a moment here. So no indirect object here, just a subject, the students, verb, kick, and direct object, the ass. And let's go ahead and go in for a high five for your practice and a high five for your future ass kicking of the exams in this class. 1, 2, 3, high five, boom. Let's move over from grammatical basics of English to Greek grammatical basics. So Greek, highly inflected language, as you've heard and as you know, words change based on their function in a sentence and they embed information in the word itself. When it comes to Greek nouns, they are going to change. They're going to have different inflections, that is, look differently. They're going to change for three different things: for their case, for their gender, and for their number. So let's talk about what those different things mean. Case is what determines a noun's grammatical function in a sentence. So whether it is the subject, whether it is the direct object, or whether it is the indirect object, as we just talked about with respect to English grammar, or whether it is showing possession or description or relationship of some kind. So our four basic Greek cases are the nominative, which is the subject of the sentence, the genitive, which shows possession. Usually we're going to use the word of when it comes to our English translation of the Greek genitive. It usually shows possession, but the genitive can do other things. It sort of describes a relationship between two words, between a noun and something else. So possession is our general, our go-to translation for the genitive. So of is what we'll normally use, but as we'll see later on, that this is a little bit more complicated than I suggest here. The dative case is the indirect object, which in English we normally translate with to or for, and the accusative case in Greek is what is the direct object, the object that is most directly affected by the verb that is done by the subject. So Greek has cases, so the word will change to reflect what case it is in. It will also change, a Greek noun will also change to reflect what gender it is in. And there are three grammatical genders in Greek, and these are not directly equated with biological gender. That is to say, you could have something that we might consider male or even a male entity with a feminine or a neuter grammatical gender. But generally speaking, more often than not, we find that there is what we might think of a particular word being a particular gender, biologically speaking, does map up grammatically speaking, but that's certainly not always the case. So don't equate grammatical gender with biological gender. And gender does not determine a word's function in a sentence. So a word can be masculine, feminine, and neuter, and it can be the subject, it can be the direct object, it can be the indirect object, it can be showing possession in the genitive. Gender has nothing to do with the function in a sentence. It is simply a feature of that word. It's just something that's sort of embedded into the word itself. And finally, number refers to singular or plural. So a Greek noun will change, just like a Greek verb does, depending on whether there is one entity doing the thing or one entity involved in the noun, or whether it's multiple. So teacher versus teachers. The word will slightly change based on whether it's in the singular or the plural. So when we are parsing nouns or we're identifying the information about nouns, these are the three things we are looking for: case, gender, and number. When it comes to how a noun is functioning in a sentence, the thing that we are primarily looking for is case. And what we're going to do next is get a little practice identifying what case certain words might be in. We haven't looked at the forms of these cases yet, but we're going to look at English sentences and sort of map on the Greek categories of case to these English sentences in order to get some more practice. All right, so we have our same three sample sentences here. Let's take them one by one, identifying what the case of each word or sort of grouping of words would be for each English sentence. So in English, we don't use cases, but Greek does. So what I want you to do is think about, first you're gonna have to think about what the grammatical function of each word is, and then you'll have to take the next step of thinking about about what the case is in Greek that does that particular grammatical function. And actually, rather than doing these one by one, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to try and do it for all of them. Maybe write it down on your whiteboard. Then I'm going to put up there what the different cases do in Greek, what their grammatical functions are, and then I will offer the correction. So we'll start with the hardest part, getting you to try and recall not only what the function of each word in this sentence is with respect to English, but then make the next step of thinking about what the Greek case is that has that function in Greek before I give you that second bit of information. So go ahead and try and do the harder part first, and then I'll come in with a little bit of help here. All right, so here is your help, remembering that the nominative case is the subject of the sentence. The accusative case, down to the bottom, is the direct object of the sentence. The indirect object is the dative case, and the genitive shows possession or description with the English of. So one more time, maybe check your work, amend your work based on what you've got here, and then I will come in with our answers. All right, so if our verb in the first sentence is teaches, and the one doing the teaching is Dr. Elder, this is going to be in the nominative. If Greek is the direct object, then this is going to be in the accusative case. And then to the students is going to be in the dative case. It is the indirect object. Down here, learn is our verb. Always best to find the verb first. The students are the subject doing the learning. They're doing the action of that verb. So it's going to be in the nominative. And then the subject is going to be in the accusative case. Greek is what is being learned. It's the object of the verb. So it's in the accusative. And our last one here, kick is our verb. The students are doing the action, so they're going to be in the nominative here. The ass is going to be in the accusative case because it is the object of the kicking. And of the Greek exam, so normally with the genitive, I put blue squiggly brackets around. It's describing or showing possession with respect to the ass. So this is going to be in the genitive case in Greek. And a high five for your ass-kicking work. 1, 2, 3, high five. Boom. And let's come in with one more note that's going to transition us into our next video here. So we've talked about case, gender, and number with respect to Greek nouns. Those are the things that we're looking for when we are parsing nouns. Again, case is telling us the function of the sentence. Gender is simply a part of the noun. All nouns have gender, whether it be masculine, feminine, or neuter. And then all nouns also have number, or they inflect for number, whether they are a singular or a plural entity. So those things are all part of a noun. And then though nouns come in 3 large groups or declension. A declension is a pattern of how a noun changes on the basis of their case and number. So how the case and number look in different declensions. So we're going to have 3 sort of sets for us to memorize in our Greek journey to be able to know what the case is in that particular declension and what the number is in that particular declension. So we have the first declension, the second declension, and the third declension. And we're going to start not with the first declension. We're actually going to start with the second declension. So that's what you have to look forward to next.